What if I told you that in a community where a killer's family can be forgiven within hours, a young woman who falls in love with the wrong man cannot, and that the price she pays for that love is the loss of everything and everyone she has ever known? Who the outsider is. Inside Amish life, the word English does not describe a language. It describes the entire world that exists beyond the fence line of the community. A neighbor, a construction worker, a man who delivers lumber to the farm, anyone who is not Amish is English. And from childhood, an Amish girl understands, without being told explicitly, that the English world is not where she belongs. Her friendships, her future, her faith, all of it is meant to stay inside. When feelings for someone outside that boundary begin, they do not arrive with a warning. They arrive quietly, the way most things that change a life do, where it begins. The setting matters. Amish girls are not cloistered entirely from the outside world. They sell produce at roadside stands. They work in family-run shops that serve English customers. During Rumspringa, the period of relative freedom that begins around age 16, some girls move further into the English world, taking jobs at restaurants or retail stores, attending social events, spending time away from the farm. It is during these moments of contact that a feeling can take root, a conversation that goes longer than it should. A young man who is kind and curious, and unlike anyone she has met inside her own circle. She does not plan it. Most girls who have lived through it will tell you the same thing. It was not a decision. It was something that happened before she understood what it was going to cost her. What she feels but cannot say. An Amish girl growing up in a community where courtship is private, structured, and expected to end in a church wedding with another Amish man has no framework for what she is feeling. There is no one to talk to about it, honestly. She cannot go to her mother because her mother will go to her father. She cannot go to her friends because her friends are embedded in the same community that will eventually judge her. She carries it alone. Former Amish women who left their communities to be with English men have described this period in nearly identical terms. A growing weight, a private grief, a love that felt real, and a life that made no room for it. She is not rebelling. She is not seeking to hurt anyone. She is simply a young woman who has developed feelings for a person her world was not built to accommodate. And the longer it continues, the more clearly she understands that there is no version of this that ends easily. The baptism question. This is where the road divides. If a girl falls in love with an English man before she has been baptized into the Amish church, she faces a painful choice, but not an irreversible one. She can delay baptism, leave the community without being technically excommunicated, and pursue the relationship. She will lose her community. She will grieve her family. But she will not be subject to formal shunning because shunning only applies to those who have made a vow and then broken it. If, however, she has already been baptized, which most Amish young people do between the ages of 18 and 22, the situation is entirely different. Baptism in the Amish church is not a symbol. It is a binding promise before God and community to live within the ordnung for the rest of her life. To leave after baptism for any reason is to break that promise. And the community's response to a broken promise is not anger. It is something the Amish describe as love-structured, systematic, painful love called shunning. What shunning actually means. The word sounds abstract until it is applied to a person you raised. Shunning, or meidung, means that a baptized member who has left the church or violated its most fundamental rules is cut off from the social fabric of the community entirely. She cannot eat at the same table as her family. She cannot accept a ride from her father or her brother. She cannot sit beside her mother at any gathering. Members of the community, neighbors, lifelong friends, cousins she grew up working beside are bound by their own vows not to engage with her in the ways that once defined their relationship. The Amish do not describe this as cruelty. The 1,632 Dordrecht Confession of Faith, which still guides Amish practice, states clearly that shunning exists for the spiritual benefit of the person being shunned, that the pain of separation is meant to produce repentance and the desire to return. What feels from the outside like punishment is inside the community's understanding, an act of love so serious that it overrides the natural instinct of a parent to sit beside their child. One Amish man interviewed for a PBS documentary said it plainly, "It is brutal. They know that. They do it anyway." The parents, among all the losses an Amish girl faces when she chooses love over community, the one that takes the longest to describe and the longest to survive is the loss of her parents. Amish families are not distant. They are the center of daily life, of work, of meals, of faith, of identity. A girl who grows up in an Amish home has spent her entire life within reach of her mother. The shift is not gradual. The day she leaves, something changes that does not change back easily. Researchers and documentarians who have spoken with Amish parents after a child's departure describe scenes of quiet devastation, mothers who weep without explanation when visitors arrive, fathers who do not speak the departed child's name in conversation, families who function on the surface while carrying something enormous underneath. One documented account describes a Schwarzentruber mother in tears the morning after her child left in the night, and the strange disorientation of a visitor trying to offer comfort for a choice that, from the outside, looked like freedom. The parents did not see it that way. To them, a daughter had walked away from her soul's safety, and the community's rules gave them no acceptable way to hold her close. Can he convert? There is one path that avoids all of it. In rare cases, an outsider who falls in love with an Amish woman has converted to the Amish faith, taken instruction from church elders, committed to the Ordnung, and been accepted into the community as a legitimate member. This path exists. It is not easy, and it is not fast. The instruction period alone takes months. The convert must give up everything the modern world takes for granted: a car, unrestricted technology, the clothes he has always worn, the career path he was on, the community he came from. He must do this not partially and not temporarily, but as a permanent restructuring of his life. The Amish do not proselytize. They do not recruit outsiders. When a conversion does happen, it is evaluated seriously, and the convert must demonstrate over time that the commitment is real and not simply romantic. Most English men who feel strongly about an Amish woman, when they understand what conversion actually requires, discover that what they felt was attraction, not calling. The rare ones who go through with it and stay become, in every measurable sense, Amish, and the relationship is no longer a forbidden one. It becomes simply a marriage. Life on the other side. For the girl who leaves and does not return, the English world presents a different kind of difficulty than she expected. She knows how to cook from scratch, how to manage a household, how to work from early morning to late evening without complaint. What she often does not know is how to navigate a social security system, how to open a bank account, how to use a smartphone, or how to explain a gap in her education to an employer. Former Amish women who left for English relationships have described the early years outside as a period of parallel grief, grieving the family left behind while simultaneously trying to learn the basic mechanics of a world they were never taught to operate in. Some find their footing. They go back to school, build careers, build new communities. Others find the isolation more than they anticipated, and some return to the Amish community, confess before the bishop and the congregation, accept a period of discipline, and are restored to full fellowship. The community takes them back. That door, painful as it is to walk through, remains open. What is not guaranteed is that the relationship that caused all of it survives the weight of what it cost. The emotional adjustment can be just as demanding as the practical one. Everyday choices that most people make without thinking suddenly become overwhelming because no one has ever taught them how to make those decisions independently. Finding trustworthy friends, understanding modern workplaces, renting an apartment, or even deciding what values to keep from childhood can become daily struggles. Some women speak of missing the predictable rhythm of Amish life, where every season had familiar routines and every neighbor was known by name. Even after years outside the community, many continue to carry parts of that upbringing with them. The skills, discipline, and habits learned in childhood rarely disappear, even if the life built around them has changed completely. What the community remembers. Inside the Amish community, the girl who left is not forgotten, and she is not spoken of freely. Her name may surface in prayer. Her chair at the table is technically empty in a way that is never quite resolved. Younger sisters grow up with the knowledge of what happened without necessarily being told the details. The community does not discuss her departure as a scandal in the way the English world might. It is held more quietly than that, as a loss, as a cautionary truth, as evidence of why the boundaries exist. The boundaries are not arbitrary. From the Amish perspective, they are protective. The outside world is not seen as evil in a simple sense, but as dangerously attractive in ways that pull people away from their commitments, their faith, and ultimately, from the community without which an Amish life cannot be sustained. The girl who left proved, to those still inside, exactly what the rules were designed to prevent. And so the rules remain, generation after generation, holding the community together the only way it knows how, by making the cost of leaving high enough that most people choose to stay. Over time, her story may become part of the quiet history of that congregation, remembered not through public conversations, but through subtle reminders passed between generations. Parents may speak more carefully when discussing courtship, baptism, or commitment, using the past as an unspoken lesson rather than a dramatic warning. Older members often continue hoping that those who leave will one day return, even if years pass without contact. That hope is rooted in the belief that reconciliation is always possible when someone sincerely wishes to come back. In this way, memory within the Amish community serves both as a source of sorrow and as a reaffirmation of the values that hold the congregation together despite the challenges of the modern world. What stays with you, after you have looked at this clearly, is that no one in this situation is the villain, not the girl who fell in love, not the Englishman who did not plan for his presence to unravel someone's world, not the parents who followed the only framework they had ever known, not the community that enforced rules it believed were necessary for its survival. Each person was acting from inside a logic that made sense to them, and the collision between those logics produced something that left damage everywhere it touched. About 10% of Amish young people ultimately leave their communities for the outside world, and among those, a meaningful number leave because of relationships. Some of them grieve that choice for the rest of their lives. Others describe it as the only decision they could have made honestly. The Amish community, for its part, retains its members at a rate that no other comparable religious group in America can match. Somewhere between 85 and 90% of baptized members stay for life. The rules that feel so harsh from the outside are the same rules that have kept this community intact for over 300 years. Whether that trade is worth what it costs, the ones who fall on the wrong side of it is not a question anyone inside the community is asked to answer. It is a question only she can answer, alone, on the other side of everything she used to know.